Hello, this is Hunter McDermott with another episode of Guitar Blog. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019, 5:40 p.m. This is episode 13. So if you have been using the internet and working on learning jazz stuff, you've probably come across a site called LearnJazzStandards.com, I think, run by a guy named Brent Varchtra, who also does a podcast. He's got like YouTube videos and he sells courses and stuff. And I really like his podcast mainly because it gives me, it's great. It's really motivating for me each week. Like I listen to it most weeks, and even if I don't get something new to like sit down and work on out of it, something practical, I always come away feeling energized about sitting down to play and to practice. And I have found that I kind of need that regular jolt of motivation / inspiration to keep working on this kind of stuff, because otherwise I get really mired in the academia part of it, I guess, of putting my head down and working on like exercises or some things, to where I forget that it's all about making music and having a good time and whatever. So his podcast is good for that. But he's been talking lately, he's been advertising a course that he's coming out with soon about the jazz blues, so specifically about that, which is nice because it's kind of where I've arrived as well, something I'd like to work on. As a form, it comes up a lot, right? So many great jazz standards, and certainly many rock tunes, and certainly purely blues tunes are all based on this kind of blues tonality, and they just riff on it in different ways or modify it and make it more or less sophisticated. So it's a good thing to know how to do. I kind of already knew that, but it's easy to get distracted. But so, speaking to that distraction, one thing I really like about what he's been saying, specifically about this course, is that something that he seems to really get, that I appreciate, is that he understands that you don't need a bunch of new shit. What you need is a way to organize and stay focused on the things that you do have, to where you reach mastery with them. Right? You need a process to kind of go through step by step to work on improving things, and just to stay focused on that long enough to actually get something out of it. And it's so annoying to me how easy it is for me to get distracted, and I am right there with everybody else who uses the internet, because you get to thinking, even whether or not you've really recognized that it's happening, chances are that you have done what I do, which is you sit down and you get excited about some new thing, like Gilad Hexelman has a cool thing about drop 2 voicings. I need to go over there and learn that. Or Julian's got some cool idea for how to work on scales or whatever, and you get all this stuff, and it's all great, but it's not always what you need at the time. Chances are it's not what you need at the time. And even Brent talks about this too. And even like Nick Minella has the 10-minute jazz lesson podcast. He talks about this too. He's like, they're cranking out new stuff all the time, and they know that you don't need new stuff anymore. Then they need to put that stuff out as often. Jens Larsen also every week, like 2 or 3 videos. It's ridiculous. So, and it's not that putting out new stuff all the time is bad. It's awesome, but and extremely impressive, and I can't do that. But you don't need it all the time. So it's hard to wade through all that stuff, or maybe just like focus your attention on one given thing long enough to actually get something out of it before you pick up something new. You can waste hours doing maybe what you're doing right now, watching somebody on the internet yak about something when you should be practicing. But anyway, so I'm intrigued about this course, and I might pick it up. It depends on how much it is. But if it's something I can afford, I'd like to pick it up and work through it, and maybe use this series to kind of record myself playing the blues, talk each week, not giving away the material that he's selling, but talk about how I'm improving what I'm working on be able to kind of measure that progress, I guess, and then have a nice bookend of before and after. There's not ever like an after. You don't get to a point where you're like, I'm done. I mastered everything. But, after a certain period of time, you've mastered some concepts and you can work them into your playing. But anyway, it's coming along at a perfect time, I think, because he kind of identifies these three different levels of, I think it's 3 levels of mastering a jazz blues, but I kind of see it as more just like jazz language in general, which is like understanding scales, being able to take a tune like, So What, and play your D Dorian mode over it and like make music out of that, because there aren't that many chord changes, or like play a blues scale over a jazz blues or whatever. And then getting more sophisticated and learning how to play arpeggios and to outline chords, that kind of thing. And I feel like that's kind of where I am. I'm still working on that, but that is a big part of my playing right now, is running through arpeggios, right, and trying to make music out of these arpeggios. So I am almost never thinking about the scales, because I just don't think it's really really reasonable to do. In my case, where I'm playing tunes that I've never heard often or play very infrequently, sit down and somebody says, let's play this tune, and I go, okay. What I can see is a B flat, an A flat, whatever, and I can try to work on stuff that I can play over those chords, rather than having the time to analyze that, oh, they're all in the same key, or they all have these common tones, and I can do that. Like, that's great stuff, and you should do that too if you have the time to really dig deep into a tune. But I don't know, lately I've been just trying to work on my overall ability to pick up new things quick and to make music with them. And I find that arpeggios is great for really both. If you've got time to work on a tune or you don't, arpeggios will help you either way. And so then the final stage, or at least the next stage, would be to introduce stuff like enclosures into your arpeggios, and just make it more beboppy. And then that's a good place to be, right? If you can really play the changes and throw in nice chromatic lines, then you sound like you're playing jazz by most people's standards, right? Certainly by my own standards. That's what I want. It's fun and it sounds good, and that's where I want to be. So so I'm excited about the potentially getting this course, because he talks about that stuff. It's not so much about providing you with tons of new material, so much as it is giving you a framework for working through what, maybe a small amount of material, but very important fundamental stuff that you should get down. Like I could probably give you a lesson on arpeggios, but it would take you, years to master using them over changes, because it's taking me that long. So anyway, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about, and it's kind of coming around along at the right time. So we'll see what happens. So outside of that, I've been working on taking arpeggios like diatonic. So here's like B flat, and then doing an enclosure on each of those notes. So I'll go above and below by a half step. And then I've been trying to accent the actual chord tone. Let's see. That kind of thing. And then working on trying to slide some of that stuff in over a blues. So instead of doing, I might go, and that's just one of those things where I think the more comfortable you are seeing your target and then being able to kind of dance around it because you've done it enough times, there's this, magic that happens in your brain where you don't have to think about how much time you have. Your brain can kind of figure that out. So you're working on something and then you just get this burst of notes that perfectly fit and land on the specific spot, right? That comes through practice, but when you're in the moment, you're not doing it consciously. So I'm already starting to see a little bit where that kind of stuff just pops out. I can kind of already in my brain calculate how many extra chromatic notes I can throw into a thing and still kind of end up where I want to be, which is cool, right? So working on that stuff is definitely already starting to pay off. But I'm worried about getting distracted and trying to focus on something else. On this very podcast, or on this very blog, I've been talking about lots of different things. And like I talked about phrasing a couple weeks ago, I'm not working on that. I should be, but I'm not. You're always playing phrases, but to actually sit down and consciously work on it, I haven't really done that, even though I said I should and I want to. It's hard. So what I really need is some help, right? Staying focused on the next step in the long mountain climb that you've got ahead of you that stretches out forever. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say. So we'll see if next week so actually the next couple weeks I'm not even going to be doing a video. So maybe by the end of this month we'll have I'll have the course and we'll be able to talk about it and maybe show some progress. So we'll see. All right, well, so anyway, to end today, I thought I would play over All Blues. Now, as jazz blueses go, it's not the most indicative. It's almost a straight blues. It's got a little bit of interesting stuff toward the end with that chromatic thing. But it's not, Billy's Bounce or whatever else, Sandu or something like that, where it's got more of those 2 5s thrown in, which is something that I think would be more useful to work on. But right now, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do that. And my goal is to try to throw in some Enclosure stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so I'll be traveling and unavailable for the next little while, but I will be back in a few weeks, and we'll see where we are by that point. Anyway, so thanks for watching. I'm going to flip over and jam on this for a few minutes, and then we'll call it. So here we go. Cool. Not the best stuff in the world. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you in a while. Bye bye.